I'm Janu, and I am a sustainability influencer and blogger. I use my platform to teach people how to live a low-waste lifestyle while also making it inclusive and accessible to everyone. As someone that grew up on the south side of Chicago, I saw firsthand how lack of access to healthy food and access to education and different resources can really have a long-lasting effect. So as long as I can remember, I've wanted to make a difference in my community. And as I got older, I started learning more about environmental issues and how they disproportionately affect people of color. Race is actually the number one factor in determining whether or not you live near a toxic waste facility. So learning all these things made me even more passionate about going back into my community and making a difference there. So when people talk about sustainable living and living a life without a lot of plastic, oftentimes low-income people of color are kept out of that conversation, because if you live in a food desert and the closest store you have is some corner store, you're gonna get a lot of food that comes wrapped in a ton of plastic. So we can't continue to talk about environmental issues if we don't talk about those that are affected the most by it. Plastics are made in facilities that produce toxic waste in the air, and so there's so many communities that can't breathe because there's all these toxic chemicals that they're inhaling. So I think it's important to not just limit the conversation and talking about plastic in the ocean or reducing plastic waste, but we also have to talk about those that are disproportionately affected by it and not leave them out of the conversation. When we're trying to make strides to make our world a better place, we can't forget about those who are forgotten about the most. How are you supposed to be sustainable when you're just trying to survive and make it to the next day? So I think the conversation needs to shift, and it needs to focus on how do we make sustainable living accessible to everyone. Sustainability is not just about having fancy zero waste products, list of things that you're supposed to do when you're starting a sustainable living journey, but what a lot of people forget about is that not everyone has access to these things. So I've used my platform and my voice to raise awareness about how low waste living is not just about, using the fancy straw, but it's about making do with what you have and reducing the waste that you can. As I began to educate myself about sustainable living, and a lot of people at the forefront of the movement don't look like me, and when we're trying to have everyone come together and make a difference, it's important to have various different types of representation. Representation matters. It can shape how people view Black and Brown communities, and it also shapes how they can view themselves. So I think it's important to see people like me talk about sustainable living and make the platform more inclusive and diverse. I think tangible things that we can all do is educate ourselves, whether that's reading a book or watching YouTube videos. There are resources out there where you can learn about these issues. You can volunteer your time to organizations that fight against these environmental injustices, and you can also donate your money. There's many things that people can do, whether that's just on a basic level of supporting a creator like me by subscribing to my channel and watching my videos, or you can donate to different organizations that are helping to combat these environmental injustices that are happening on a daily basis. So what will you do to make a difference?